really, and you like log in, we'll see like to AWS, you're just going to log into a computer and you'll be directly in the command line. And you'll be able to interact with the computer, right? That's just like another computer connected to the internet somewhere. And you can interact with it like a normal computer, so long as you use Linux, okay? So long as you use like the command line. So, you know, some of the techniques of like using the Finder and things like that, that won't really be available to you. And like in general, it's just good to be kind of like more fluent with the command line. So, we have a few things that we just want to show with this. So imagine you have this Yelp lunch nyc.csv file. One thing also, like if you work with a really large data set, it can be hard to even load up that data set to then ask questions about it. All right. So one thing that's nice about working with a command line is you can avoid loading this data into memory, right? If we do like pd.readcsv, then you're loading the data into memory first, and if that data set's really large, that can be a challenge or even impossible to do. All right, so here we can work with the data without worrying about that we have to load this whole thing into memory. So what can we do? So if we want to explore this data set, we can use the word count command. We have this Yelp lunch.csv, and you can see the information that we get here. So this is the lines, the amount of lines in the file. This is the amount of words in the file, and then this is the amount of bytes. And this WC command, you can even, this is if we want to just see, for instance, like the amount of lines, you can do -L, right? And now it's just showing us the amount of lines. And then I think it's either -C or -N. I think it's -C. Hold on. -L-C, and maybe it's, I think that's the bytes. Let me see if I can do -N. I forget. Let me see. So these are the two I remember. Basically, the lines is the one that I look for, or if you just want to see all of it, WC-L, Yelp lunch, nyc.csv. If you want to see all of it, right, you just leave out the flag. All right, so now you can see the amount of words and then the amount of lines. One other thing you may want to do is just like look at the first few lines in the file. So if you just do head followed by the file, this is really useful because then you can, for instance, you're loading the data into pandas or something like that. You can just decide, hey, I really just need these columns, right, instead of all of the data. Right, so it's another good way to manage your data, and then you can view, just like the first few rows. I think if we do, I just want to see if I can get any of these flags right. -N3. Let's try that again. You see that? If I put a -N3, then I can specify the number of lines. So by default, I guess it's like 10. But we can specify more or fewer. And then another thing we can do, if we can see the first few lines, sometimes the bottom of the file is different, right? Maybe it's like corrupted, maybe it has different data. So you can check that as well with the tail command. And that's just, again, tail Yelp lunch nyc. So tail and then the name of the file. One common way that people will use tail is with a log file, right? Like if you have Postgres, and you're inserting data into the database or you're performing queries, well, the log keeps a written record, right, of all of the queries, right, of all the commands that's being issued. It's just literally written to a text file, okay? So one thing that you may want to do is if you just do like tail and then the log file, you can see the last 10 lines, but it's kind of done. One thing that oftentimes we do is tail-F, which means follow. And notice that it's still right here. It's kind of like listening, right? It's listening for updates to the file, and it will continue to display them, like the new last 10 lines. So this one will disappear, and then we'll see another one down here, right? So if you think about like running the server, when you run your Flask server and you see different, you see the logs there, that's what's happening, right? The logs are written to a file. And then you can just like see the results, right, by doing tail-F. This is pretty common. Like this is the one, I use this every once in a while. All right. Like I said, if you, like it could be useful, for instance, with like the Postgres log file if we were to find that. Okay, so far what have we seen? We've seen the word count, right? Where you just do WC, Yelp Lunch, NYC. We've seen head, right? To see the first number of lines. We saw that with head, you can pass through an argument, right? Like the number of words. The number of lines you want to show. And then obviously we saw with the other side, we can do tail. One other thing, this can get useful as well. We have VS Code now, so we can always, like in VS Code, right, we can search for a file, I guess, through VS Code, by just doing Command-Shift-F, and then, search for whatever, whatever it is. There's no results, but let's say like pizza, right? And it shows us throughout this file and really throughout the folder where these results are. But you can also do that through the terminal with grep. Okay, this can be really useful. Like if you have like a massive code base, lots of times people would, at least when I was coding, use grep in order to search through the code base. You can like search this file, let's say Yelp Lunch NYC. I think this comes first. Or pizza. Let's see if that works. Yeah, there we go. So this is everything that has pizza. Let's just choose one place like this. Huguenot. So it's just grep, the name of the word that we're searching for, and then the file that we're searching, right? And then one thing that's nice, I think it will go here. You can put in the -n, and here it tells you the line number where the match is. Okay? So you do grep -n for number, like line number, and then the word you're searching for, the file you're searching, and it tells you, and it gives you the line number as well as the match. Okay, I think that's mainly what I wanted to talk about with like kind of exploring a single file, right? We have the word count, we have head and tail, and then we have grep. Questions about these commands? One other thing maybe I can show you is if you do like man grep, you see that? So you can just type man and then one of the commands, right, that you want to learn more about, and it will take you to the Linux manual. All right, and you can see like now I can read about this. Okay, how grep works, different. Lots of times, what is it useful? Why is this useful? Is like the flags, right? Like look, we can print the number of lines of leading and trailing context surrounding each match. So the default is 2, but we can choose others, right? So like this can be useful when you do this, when you do like man, right, man and then the command, right? You can do this with anything. ls, here's a list of directory contents. You're taken into Vim, right? You see the little colon there. So for you to exit out of it, you just press the lowercase letter q, and now I'm out. All right, so I'll do it one more time. Man ls, I'm into Vim, and then I just press q, and then I'm out. All right. Other things to talk about is just piping. So piping, I think we probably have come across this, right? So you can, you can like kind of attach, like feed one command into another. So I'll show you what I mean. Say we grep for like, Chinese restaurants or something like that. Or let's say, things like York Avenue in Yelp Lunch. Okay. So now let's say we want all of the matches here, or let's say like there's too many here. So we just want to view the first like 5. So we can take the results of this command, right, which is, all these matches, and then we can just pipe them into like the head. And let's put quotes around this. This way it really is URCAF. Oh, that didn't work at all. Let's try Broadway. There we go. All right. So now we have, a bunch of restaurants on Broadway. Let's say we just want to see the first few of them. I can do like head of that. And now we just get the first 10. All right. So we're taking the results of this and passing that as the argument to this. That makes sense? You can do this with anything. So if we do ls, and I just want to say I want to pipe the results of this. Here I see 4 of them, and let's just see the first -2, right? So take the results of this and put them as an argument to this command. And now we only see 2. We're only listing the first 2 files. Right? So all you're doing to accomplish this is putting a pipe in between the 2 commands. And you can chain as many as you want. We can take I didn't show sort yet, but let's say we want to take these results. And so we have these results, and I want to sort them. Right, so now these are sorted. All right, and now I just want to get to view the first few of these things. So I can search for the word Broadway, get the restaurants, sort the results, and then just see the first 10. All right, and you can see this. All right, so this pipe can be pretty useful. So piping still, takes the results and spits them to what's called standard output. Standard output is what you see on the screen. Let me show you something. So really, when you issue a command, all right, you issue a command. The command by default goes to what's called standard output. Right? And that standard output is displayed, But another thing you can do is you can issue a command, and then instead of it going here, you can redirect it, okay, to another file. And so instead of the results being displayed on the screen, we can have the results be written to a file. All right, so I'll show you kind of what I mean. I believe we've already, when you log into, when you sign up for GitHub, you already see this. So, for instance, with GitHub, you use the echo command, initial commit or something like that, right? It says, okay, let's create a README. So you do initial commit, and then and what echo does, echo just literally displays, right? But now let's say I use this caret, and let's say we're going to write the results of this to a file called readme.txt. Right? And now notice that I no longer see the output, right? This is because, when we use the caret, we're saying don't display to standard output, but rather redirect to the file. So instead, if you look at the readme.txt file, let's just do code dot. Right? This has that text, right? So again, what we did was we just said echo, and then instead of pipe it, right, feed it to another command, we're saying rather redirect away from standard output and into readme.txt. If you do this again, if I do initial commit, let's just call this other commit. All right, and now let's look at the file. See that it replaced the contents of the file. All right, this is called clobbering, right? Clobber. So it's removing and replacing the contents of the file when I'm doing this. But if I want to instead append it, right? I'll use 2 arrows. And now we are appending, right? And not clobbering. the contents of the file. So when is something like this, useful beyond like the GitHub sign up thing? Let's say we want to, search for grep for like Broadway, right? We want to get it. We have a list of all of our restaurants, and now we just want to get the ones on Broadway. So we do Yelp lunch NYC, right? And then pipe to sort it, right? So now we have them in order. And now the next thing we want to do is write these results, this output to like Broadway restaurants.csv. Okay? And now this should be written. Instead of, I can like open this and view it. Another thing that you'll also see people do is just cat it. Cat it just means like concatenate. And it's just, it's just a shorthand for displaying this in the console, like display, right? We're just displaying it, the contents, right? We could have also used like head, of course, just if we want to see like the first 10. Okay, so right in the second half, what we learned about was essentially piping commands, right? Where we can like view the first, do something like ls, and then do ls pipe, just view the first 3, and that takes the results of this and feeds it to this next command, right? And we said that we can really chain this as much as we want. So we can do ls and then sort the contents of ls and then just show the first few results, right? And now you can see that, I guess they always were in alphabetical, but here you can see we did that again. And then we said instead of piping was spitting out to standard output, we can redirect the output to a file. So I can do ls sort and then pipe to like my files.txt or something, right? And then we can view the files.txt. And if you do this, it will, again, right, it will clobber the results. So we just see the same results again. But if we add the 2 carets, right, this will append. So now we see the results twice, right? Because it appended the second time. Right, and then we also saw man, right? Man cat. Here's the concatenate and print files, right? So we can look up kind of any of our commands this way. And then just remember you have to do Q. You can press space to read more, or just press the arrow keys. So your mouse doesn't really work when you're in Vim. In fact, when I was learning Vim, they unplugged my mouse, so I wasn't able to use it anymore. But anyway, so you just have to use the arrow keys. And then to get out, you press the letter Q. Any questions about what we went over, this material? this is. Okay. So essentially we talked about like, right, EC2 is a computer, right? One of Amazon's computers. And you can see that we have these instances running. In order to launch an instance, right, we can just click, launch instance, right? And we talked about it like the analogy to draw is essentially you're going to Best Buy, right? What do you need to do if you're buying a computer, right? You have to pick out essentially, right, the hardware and the software. So we give this a name. We specify that we want to use Amazon Linux, right? This is the software, right? What kind of computer are we buying? Is 64-bit. This is the hardware, right? So we're doing the free tier eligible. The security group, what's the security group? That's the firewall, right? So that's why you can either do like the existing, but really like maybe a better way to think about it is it's a set of rules about who's allowed to access your computer, okay? Whether that be anyone in the public or just like people from certain on certain networks or computers with certain IP address. When we have this 0.0.0.0/0, that means anyone, right? We're not restricting based on the computer's IP address. We're allowing, that's not the restriction. We'll still have, a PEM file, right? This kind of public key, private key, right? Key pair thing. Remember we talked about this, that the public key is essentially the lock and the private key is your key that opens the lock. And that you'll have the PEM file on your computer and use that, key to open up or connect to the computer. The storage, right? This is that like Elastic Storage, right? EBS, Elastic something storage, block storage, I believe, right? That's the hard drive, right? So you can you can have a computer, you can just keep plugging in external hard drives to it. Same thing with Amazon. And then we create it. All right, so let's go. So we have this instance that's running. I do not. Let's click on one, like sample EC2, and actions. Manage instance state. I guess manage instance state is what I need. Stopped. Let's click start, and then change state. So you can see what I did. I'll just do that again. I have this stopped EC2. So I'll just click on it. I'll click actions and then manage instance state. All right. From there, I click on start and then I click on change state. Amazon's doing its best to make things easier, but they are notoriously bad at UI. So that's just the way it is. All right. So you can then click on this, right, instance, and we can see that it's starting up, right? We see the pending. Key things to like pay attention to are essentially, for me at least, you can see the details here, obviously under details. The public DNS, right? This is our domain name that we're given. It's not given a nice name like, ESPN.com or whatever, because they don't know what you're doing. Like they don't know your business. But this is what they're giving you just to start with. And then, the IP address, right? This is like a little more detailed in theory than the domain name. And now the other thing that I like to pay attention to is the security. All right, this is our security group, right? This is our firewall, the set of rules that I guess specify who can access, here we're saying anyone, and how they can access it, right? So remember the 22, this is for SSHing, right? Connecting from the command line. The 80 is for, which I think you'll have to set, is for saying, okay, we're gonna have Flask running on this, and this is, and that's gonna be running on port 80. So these different ports connect to different computer programs, right? It's like the program is running on your computer at a specific port. And to edit this, right, I think once this thing connects, we probably, we should be able to edit this. All right. Now, it's running. Beautiful. All right, let's see. Can we do something? So let's go to actions, manage instances, security, change security groups. Huh. Terminate, connect. Maybe I can edit it. Okay, so here, so when I click on this, I also see security. Oh, okay. And I think this is what I have to do. So I have this, so I'm back to kind of my EC2 instances, right? You see both of them here, right? And now you see, okay, here's the security tab. Now under security tab, we can click on security groups. All right, so I'm glad we went through this. This is confusing. Now, I believe we can click on edit inbound rules. Thank God. All right, so what did we do? Let's do it again. Here's kind of this panel. We have to click on this security groups thing. All right, and now if we go to actions, we can click on edit inbound rules. What are we generally going to work with? Well, like by default, all we're really given is SSH access, right? Like that's the only thing our firewall is like permitting. So we're going to add in HTTP access, which probably will take us to port 80 automatically, right? And we're saying anyone can access it. And then you can like save the rules. All right. Then we can go back to the EC2. Here's my instance. One is running. There it is. What I'm looking for is the DNS, right? The domain name. And this way I can SSH, right? Somewhere, I don't know where on my computer, there is like a PEM file. I don't see it. But we would do something like that, SSH-I, I believe, right? And we have to put in the PEM file and then put in our AWS. I think it's actually, remember it was EC2-user app. And then, it may be that. Oh, look at this, sample ec2.pem. Let's try it. Yes, right, we have to type yes. Oh, man. I don't know. Let's just quickly see how I do SSH. If I can't get it, then we'll just move. I'll just trust you all to figure out where I cannot. Oh, SSH-I. Here's the PEM, right, file. And then here's the EC2 user followed by our DNS name, right? So I have, it might just be this PEM file is off or something, right? This could be the wrong file. So we have EC2-user, that's what I have, followed by the DNS, except this has US East. Let's just go back to the instance details. Here's the domain name, EC2-. I'm just going to go to the end here and delete this and then paste it back. All right, load EC2. Look at this, it says bad permissions. It is required. Look at this. Okay, this is nice. It says it is required that your private key files are not accessible by others, and I believe maybe mine is. All right, so I think it's complaining about that. Now, if I was smart, I would have figured this out by clicking on this connect thing, which actually gives me instructions. You see that? Let's go back. Here's my EC2, right? If I'm on my EC2 instances, I'll click on the one that's running, and then I'll click on this guy, and now you can see this connect button. So when I want to SSH, then you can go over to this SSH client tab, and it gives you instructions for what to do, right? It says, hey, run this chmod 400 sample EC2. This changes the permissions. This protects this file so that not everyone on the internet can access it, can like hack into your computer and access it. All right, so let's run this, and then let's copy this line. Let's see if this works. Ah, beautiful. There we are. All right, so now we're inside our EC2 machine. Okay, we can dig around. Look, there's my app. How did we do that? We had to SCP, right, my app into this /home/EC2 user directory. Okay, so to do that, I think it was something like SCP, then the same thing, -I, our PEM file, sample, I'll just type it, sample EC2 ec.pem, and then say, it's just like normal copying. So you copy, a specific thing. Let's say I'm going to copy this Twitter accounts.csv into this thing, this EC2 user, colon. So this is like as the user at this address, okay, colon this directory. So after the colon goes the directory that you're, I'll make this bigger, that you're, why did that happen? That you're trying to copy the file into. This is as, I typed it wrong and no one told me. It's sample EC2, right? Sample EC2.pem. Okay, so you see this? This looks good, right? We just copied over this Twitter accounts.csv file, right? Let's log back in. So just press up a couple times. We'll SSH into the machine. Let's dig around. Here's my Twitter accounts.csv. Because I know something about the command line now, we can cat this thing, take a look at it. The other thing I can do for starting our up Flask is, well, remember what we'll have to do is we'll have to, remember the first time I tried just pip install -r requirements.txt, that didn't work, right? Because I needed to do sudo, okay? So super user, we have to install. And the reason for this was, I think changing the port when I had to ultimately run index.py, this file. Let's take a look at it. Remember what this is doing. In this index.py file, we have to set the port to port 80. Why? Because in general, this is how how you access a web application that runs on HTTP is from port 80. And we set our firewall to allow access to port 80. And this host 0.0.0, this is because Flask has its own rules and its own protections against letting the outside world make requests to it. So by setting the host equal to all zeros, I'm telling Flask, hey, don't worry about it. Just let anyone access this thing. So we can, all right, so we do sudo, sorry about that. So do sudo pip install requirements.txt. I think I did that already. And then we'll do sudo pip3. And we just need to sudo python 3. We just need to run this index.py file, right? And that will boot up Flask. So now this is booting. Notice that it's running on port 80. And then we should be able to access, go here. Now, the one thing to worry about is if you go here, it's going to make, oh, it worked fine. Never mind. Don't worry. I was concerned that this would go to HTTPS : and that will break, I believe. You see that? So if it breaks, you just have to make sure that this is HTTP, all right? Which is set up, and that works fine. Okay, that went way smoother. Questions about any of this stuff? Or anything you want me to go over before? Because you can see what we ask you to do is, you can review this material, go through it once, and then here you'll have to deploy it yourself. And then, it'll just get harder. Well, then we'll have you boot up a database in the cloud and connect your Flask application to that database. All right? Just move slowly. Try to AWS can feel kind of opaque, but it's all just I think they're all concepts that if you reach for it, try to understand it. Try to remember what this thing is actually doing under the hood and why we need to do each step, just like you normally do.